We are here. It is the last day of 2019. This is Bob Rigneris. I'm the co-owner of feedstories.com, who works a lot with Perry, and also the co-author of the Ultimate Guide to Facebook Advertising, version 4, due out in 2020. It's finally here. And the reason we're recording today, it's the last day of 2019, is it's kind of funny. Obviously, we do a lot of videos for Perry, and in trying to come up with new content, I stumbled across a blog post that you wrote in, I guess, at the end of 2009, which
Yes.
was 10 predictions for the next decade. And I was thought, oh, this is interesting. Let's see how Perry did. And as I was reading through, it was like, oh, he nailed that. He nailed that. Oh, he missed on this one. But I think your batting average is like above Hall of Fame numbers. I think to get in the Hall of Fame, you have to hit about 300. I think you were about 700 or 800, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So the first question, Perry, is what was kind of your mindset at the end of 2009 to kind of put that together? It was just kind of interesting to come across that.
Well, I was, seeing everybody else doing this, and it's always struck me that it's very popular when people put out these things, but nobody goes back and checks how people did.
Right.
And I really felt strongly that certain things were going to happen. And so I decided to put it out there. And then, Bob, I completely forgot that I had done this until you pointed out. I was very fortunate that you were doing this. And I went and looked. It's like, well, and I wrote a blog post about, okay, so how did I do? And I gave myself 110% on some of them. Why? Because I think if you not only get something approximately right, but you actually nail it, well, I think you should give yourself extra credit. I would certainly give somebody else extra credit.
There you go.
So, well, in all seriousness, everybody's listening to somebody, and you should be asking, how good are people at predicting the future? Because otherwise, why would you watch somebody's videos and read somebody's emails if they didn't have a clearer crystal ball than most everybody else? So, and I'm willing to take a risk. I'm willing to be wrong. And I was gloriously wrong on a couple of these. I was very disappointed to be wrong, actually. Like in the case of Google.
Yeah, let's start with that. I'd be interested in the one that you were probably most disappointed in being wrong with.
Yeah, so I thought that Google would self-correct, because I thought Google was being too totalitarian 10 years ago. Like you wake up one morning and all of a sudden thousands and thousands of advertisers are just dead, like machine gunned, and you get no explanation. I thought, well, man, that's a little harsh. Surely this will improve. Surely this don't be evil thing will at least sort of take it seriously. No. In fact, Google's gotten worse. Probably about, 3 or 4 years ago, whoever they put in charge of Google Ads was just a mercenary salesperson who didn't really care about the game of advertising from the advertiser's point of view. And it got to where they would just call you on the phone and tell you just about anything in order to get you to spend more money. And the inside of AdWords is like a propaganda machine that all of the people that work there believe. It's like a pink Kool-Aid thing. Well, in 2019, they machine gunned alternative medicine on the organic side. Like now you just find big pharma and big medicine and Mayo Clinic and WebMD and all these really traditional conventional medicine guys, and they threw the alternative medicine people completely under the bus. And then a few weeks ago, they completely banned tax attorneys and IRS negotiators from both organic and paid, just wiped out. And this really concerns me. And I don't have any doubt that they can make more money in the short term and they can please their shareholders and all of that in the short term. That it's probably a Wall Street good business decision, but it is not a good business decision from the standpoint of the users. And I think they're out of control, and I'm not happy about that. In fact, well, so that shapes a lot of my future predictions for 2019, because I'm very concerned about the big four.
Well, you were pretty I think you were optimistic that Google would be a little bit more democratic in terms of how they deal with their advertisers. Whether, obviously, within Planet Perry, there's advertisers that are doing $100 a month up to $1 million or 10 million a month in ads.
Yes.
But I think your hope as kind of the Google AdWords guy still is that there would be a little bit more democratic process for advertisers, so they would have a voice. And in fact, it went completely opposite of what you had hoped.
Yeah, and so, maybe I should have known, because I talk about 80-20 and 95-5 all the time, and 95-5 is where Google wants to go if they want to absolutely make the most money. And Google is ruled by money. So, maybe the 80-20 guy should have figured that out, but I figured out now. And I'm very, very keen on that. And it flavors everything that I predicted for the next decade.
So perhaps that prediction was more of a hope.
Yeah.
That for yourself and people who rely on AdWords, maybe that was more of a hope instead of a true prediction. And I think it's kind of a view, as you said, towards predictions for this decade. I think you actually were more realistic and less hopeful in some of those things.
Yeah. In fact, my wife and I were talking about this at length because we were on a trip during Christmas, and so we got hours to talk, and so I went through all my stuff and that I was thinking about in my scratch pad, and and she goes, "Man, Perry, this is a little too dystopian," and I didn't. So she kind of helped me fix it. I mean, I think I have a nice balance, but frankly, it's easier to make pessimistic predictions than it is to make optimistic predictions. I've actually got both. And, there are going to be, believe me, there are going to be optimistic, great, wonderful things, and there's going to be some great surprises in the next 10 years. But it's no secret. We got some problems in the world.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just calling it like I see it.
So if you haven't had a chance to reread the blog post, it's the link will be in the emails. The link will be on the page to actually see what was the original post, and then you actually, I think you have a red and a green. Like, I nailed this one, I didn't nail this one, with a little bit of commentary.
Yep.
So I would encourage anyone that hasn't read it. It's just really cool to kind of see where Perry was at 10 years ago and how accurate he was. And I think obviously now people are like, well, okay, so you batted about 800 on that. So we're really interested to hear what's going to go on in 2020 and beyond. So before we dive in, and we're going to probably record these separately, but what's your mindset going into this decade? You talked about optimism versus pessimism. Like, kind of where are you at on that spectrum, and did that flavor the way you kind of predicted where things are going to go this decade?
So the lens through which I look through the whole thing is that in the 21st century, systems work perfectly until they fail. And then when they fail catastrophically. And that actually flavors almost everything, because I think it's a universal truism. It's a characteristic of everything that works 95-5. And we'll get to this in the other video, I'm sure. It also affects your strategy, because as you're a solo entrepreneur, you're a CEO of a company, you're a freelancer even, that what you're going to find is that you're locked out until something cracks and you're in, and then all of a sudden you're really in. And it's not used how most people are used to thinking. And even in very small ways, you're going to wake up in the morning and suddenly something's going to be different, and you're going to find out it's completely different. It's not a little bit different. And so this is not a decade of gradual transitions. This is a decade of abrupt changes. So so there's a mindset you need to have to be ready for things.
Okay. Just kind of overall in terms of these predictions, is it kind of based, are all these based in the whole 95-5 philosophy? Like if you were looking at the scope of the 10 that you came up with?
Well, certainly, I'd say about half of them are,
Okay.
and then half of them are looking at how is the government and how are big corporations and are the pendulum swings of society, like how are those affecting people? And boy, I think this is going to be a really, really interesting decade. I think a lot of fortunes are going to change hands. I
Hmm.
think there are people who are doing very well that are suddenly not going to be doing well, and vice versa.
Well, it's interesting. I think one of the things that kind of struck me over the last couple years in your city tours is you showed the picture of how rivers are formed, and you explain the momentum of the water and how things shift, and that water is not going to flow straight line, it's going to swing. And then as those swings get more and more violent, you get deeper crevices and deeper cuts in the river and things like that. I think
Mm,
that was the thing that really struck me from at least this past year, sitting there is going, wow, the country was, we can just look back, right? Politically, we were very Democratic, Barack Obama, very liberal, and now, boom, we swung, Donald Trump, very conservative. And so, is there another giant swing even to the left, or will there be any settling? I don't think you have any political posts in there, but certainly there's political ramifications. You certainly have that in the back of your mind as you kind of set those things up. So, do you kind of see the decade still being tumultuous in terms of violent swings left and right?
yeah, I do. And in fact, what you have even more in in the 21st century is the extremes batting the ball back and forth over the middle, who is either apathetic or completely unable to affect things. And so it makes things very erratic. In fact, if you want a bonus prediction that's not on the blog, I decided not to go political, but my political prediction is I think the administration of the U.S. will manage to keep us out of a recession through the election by whatever means. I think they'll manage to do that. And I think if the Democrats don't put a moderate person on the ticket, Trump is actually going to get reelected, to the shock and the horror of the Democrats. There seemed to, and that might seem to go against this whole 95-5 like swinging extremes things, but it actually is completely consistent with it, because there's no way the Democrats are going to get a large number of conservatives to support their candidate unless their candidate is advocating a fairly moderate agenda. And I'm not too sure the Democrats are going to do that. But in any case, and I'm not saying who I want, or I'm not getting into any of that. I'm just
Right.
telling you these are the forces at play.
Well, great. So we're going to end this video here. We'll kind of, on a cliffhanger. We're going to jump in shortly to some of the individual predictions, but we encourage you to follow along as we go through here. The 10 days, the first 10 days of the year, we're going to go through these predictions, and what we are looking for is conversation. Definitely go on the blog, comment. Tell us if you think Perry is right on, or I think Perry would even be interested if you think he's full of it.
Yeah, totally.
Let's have some good debate here. We're not
I'm a
looking
big boy.
for, yeah, well, we're not looking for blind, blind following here. It would be interesting to see kind of what people's thoughts are on each prediction, kind of where they think it's going to be, and feel free to make your own predictions. Leave it there for the next 10 years, and when we come back here, Perry in our 60s, and we're reviewing this, we'll see how he did again. So thanks for following along, and we'll see you in the next video.